Focus on yourself and stay silent in 2026. Silence is not weakness. Focus is not isolation. Discipline is not punishment. In a world that shouts for attention, the strongest move you can make is to become quiet and precise. While others announce their plans, you build. While others seek approval, you sharpen your skill. While others react, you respond with purpose. This is not retreat. This is preparation. 2026 is not a year to explain yourself. It is a year to become undeniable. Focus begins the moment you decide that your attention is more valuable than your impulses. Most people live scattered lives, reacting to notifications, opinions, comparisons, and emotional swings. Their energy is divided into fragments, and fragmented energy produces fragmented results. Focus is the act of gathering yourself back into one direction. It is saying no to 10 things so that one thing can be done with precision. When your mind is disciplined, your effort stops being wasted and action starts to carry weight. Depth over noise means committing fully to the process, not flirting with motivation when it feels good. It means working even when progress is slow and invisible. True focus is not intense for a moment. It is steady over time. It is showing up when excitement fades and continuing when no one is applauding. This kind of focus builds a quiet confidence because you know you are improving whether anyone notices or not. You stop seeking shortcuts and begin respecting repetition, knowing that mastery is hidden inside consistency. Focus also demands responsibility. You cannot blame circumstances when your attention is under your control. If you are distracted, it is because you allow distraction. If you are unfocused, it is because you have not chosen a clear priority. Once a direction is chosen, excuses lose their power. You no longer ask how you feel before acting. You act because the work must be done. This creates mental strength, the ability to move forward, regardless of comfort or mood. When you focus deeply, comparison disappears. You no longer measure yourself against others because your path is defined. Envy fades when your schedule is full of meaningful effort. The mind becomes calm because it has a task. Anxiety often comes from unfocused energy, from wanting everything at once and committing to nothing fully. Focus simplifies life. It reduces mental clutter and replaces it with clarity. One goal, one standard, one step at a time. Focused people do not rush, but they do not hesitate. They understand that speed without direction leads nowhere. Each movement is intentional. Each decision supports the larger purpose. This level of attention trains patience and self-respect. You begin to trust yourself because you follow through on what you start. That trust compounds into discipline, and discipline becomes identity. Over time, focus reshapes how you see effort. Hard work stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like alignment. You recognize that saying no to distractions is not loss but protection. Protecting your energy, your time, and your potential becomes natural. You stop explaining why you are unavailable. Your priorities are no longer negotiable. The mind becomes sharp, the routine becomes solid, and progress becomes inevitable through repeated deliberate action. Silence is where discipline is tested and refined. When the noise is removed, there is nowhere to hide. No audience to impress, no opinions to lean on, no external validation to keep motivation alive. Silence forces honesty. It reveals whether your commitment is real or dependent on attention. In quiet moments, the ego weakens and the work becomes clear. What needs to be done stands in front of you without decoration or distraction. In silence, you learn to listen inward. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts, habits, and reactions. Weakness becomes visible, not as something to be ashamed of, but as something to be trained. When there is no talking, no explaining, and no defending yourself, energy is conserved. That energy can then be redirected into effort, repetition, and refinement. Silence sharpens awareness, and awareness is the foundation of control. Staying silent also builds emotional strength. When you stop responding to every provocation, you regain authority over your reactions. Not every comment deserves an answer. Not every challenge requires explanation. Restraint becomes power. You learn that reacting less does not mean caring less, it means choosing wisely. This restraint protects focus and prevents unnecessary battles that drain mental clarity. Silence creates patience. Growth is slow, and silence teaches you to tolerate that slowness without frustration. When progress is not announced or praised, you learn to rely on internal standards. Improvement becomes something you feel rather than something you display. This develops self-respect. Because your effort is no longer dependent on being seen. You continue because you value the process, not the applause. Working in silence also removes pressure. Expectations from others often shape behavior more than personal goals. Silence breaks that influence. Without constant updates or promises, you are free to adjust, fail, correct, and continue. Mistakes become lessons instead of embarrassments. This freedom accelerates growth because learning happens faster when fear of judgment is removed. Silence trains humility. No matter how skilled you become, there is always more to learn. Quiet effort keeps arrogance in check. It reminds you that results come from repetition, not from talking about potential. Humility keeps the mind open and the body willing to train again tomorrow. This mindset sustains long-term progress instead of short bursts of motivation. Over time, silence builds an unshakable presence. People sense stability in those who do not need to announce themselves. Calm replaces urgency. Confidence becomes steady rather than loud. This presence is not forced, it is earned through countless hours of unseen effort. Silence becomes a shield protecting your direction, your discipline, and your growth from unnecessary interference. Results are the only language that cannot be argued with. Words invite debate, explanations invite doubt, promises invite judgment, results stand without defense. They do not ask to be believed, they are seen. When your actions are consistent, your outcomes become clear, and clarity removes the need for approval. This is why quiet effort is powerful. It allows progress to accumulate without interference, without pressure to perform before you are ready. When you stop announcing your intentions, you remove the burden of expectation. There is no rush to prove anything, no need to meet timelines set by others. You work according to reality, not image. This creates space for precision. Each improvement is built carefully, layer by layer, without compromise. Progress made this way lasts because it is not rushed to impress. Results come from alignment between thought, habit, and action. Discipline becomes visible through consistency, not intensity. Anyone can work hard for a short time when motivated. Few can work steadily when motivation fades. This steadiness compounds. Small efforts repeated daily shape outcomes that appear sudden to outsiders but are inevitable to those doing the work. What looks like talent is often just patience practiced longer than others were willing to endure. When results become your focus, comparison loses meaning. You no longer need to measure your worth against others because your standards are internal. Improvement is tracked against yesterday, not against someone else's highlight. This creates independence. Your confidence no longer rises and falls with opinions. It grows quietly as skill increases, as strength develops, as control sharpens. Letting results speak also protects humility. There is no need to exaggerate progress or claim mastery. The work continues regardless of recognition. This mindset keeps the ego in check and the mind open to learning. You remain a student, always refining, always correcting. Growth becomes sustainable because it is not fueled by pride but by purpose. Results also bring authority. People listen differently when they see proof. Trust is built naturally when actions match outcomes. This authority is not demanded, it is earned. It carries weight because it is grounded in effort. There is no need to convince or persuade. The evidence is present in performance, in reliability, in consistency. Over time, this approach reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. Discipline becomes automatic. Excuses feel uncomfortable. Standards rise because you know what you are capable of producing. Each result becomes a reminder that focus works, silence protects, and effort compounds into something solid and undeniable. Routine is the structure that turns intention into reality. Without structure, motivation drifts and discipline collapses under pressure. A strong routine removes decision fatigue and replaces it with direction. You no longer ask what to do next, the path is already set. This creates momentum, and momentum makes progress feel natural rather than forced. When your days are organized around dawn's purpose, time stops slipping away unnoticed. Guarding your time is an act of self-respect. Every hour wasted on distraction is an hour taken from your potential. Time is not just something you spend, it is something you invest. When you become selective with where your time goes, your life begins to sharpen. You stop giving energy to things that offer no return. This selectiveness is not arrogance, it is clarity. You understand that access to your time must be earned through value or alignment. A disciplined routine reveals what weakens you. Late nights, poor habits, scattered attention, and inconsistent effort all show themselves when structure is applied. Instead of avoiding these weaknesses, you confront them. Removing what weakens you is often more powerful than adding new strategies. Simplicity strengthens execution. Fewer distractions mean deeper focus. Fewer excuses mean stronger results. Consistency within routine builds trust with yourself. Each completed task is a small promise kept. Over time, these promises compound into confidence. You begin to believe in your ability to follow through. This belief fuels further discipline. The routine becomes an anchor during difficult days, keeping you moving even when motivation is low. Progress continues because the system does not rely on emotion. A well-built routine also trains adaptability. When challenges arise, you adjust without abandoning structure. Flexibility exists within discipline, not outside it. You learn how to recover quickly from setbacks and return to your path without drama. This resilience prevents small failures from turning into long pauses. Momentum is preserved through commitment to process. Protecting your routine means protecting your identity. You become someone who trains, someone who works, someone who shows up. This identity reduces inner conflict. You no longer debate whether to act. Action is expected. Standards rise naturally because the environment you create demands more from you. Growth becomes a byproduct of how you live each day. As routine tightens, awareness of energy increases. You recognize when something drains you and when something strengthens you. This awareness guides better choices. Sleep improves, focus deepens, effort becomes cleaner. The routine evolves into a personal code, shaping behavior without force, directing effort without noise, reinforcing discipline through repeated structure and deliberate use of time. Action is the dividing line between intention and transformation. Many people think, plan, and prepare endlessly, convincing themselves that movement will come later. Later becomes comfortable, and comfort becomes a cage. Taking action now disrupts that cycle. It forces clarity. Once you move, even imperfectly, you discover what works and what does not. Momentum is created through movement, not contemplation. The first step is rarely clean or confident, but it is necessary. Immediate action trains decisiveness. Each time you act without overthinking, you strengthen your ability to trust yourself. Doubt weakens when confronted by experience. Fear loses authority when challenged by effort. Action turns uncertainty into feedback. Instead of imagining outcomes, you encounter reality. Reality is honest, and honesty accelerates growth. You stop asking if you are ready and begin becoming ready through repetition. Small actions matter more than dramatic gestures. Consistent effort builds. Learn to work around obstacles instead of waiting for ideal conditions. Imperfection becomes acceptable because progress is the priority. This mindset frees you from paralysis. You move forward even when confidence is low, even when results are uncertain. Taking action narrows focus. When you are working, distractions fade. Energy is directed into the task instead of scattered across worries. Action anchors attention in the present. This presence increases quality. Each repetition becomes more pressure over time. One disciplined choice today is more powerful than a perfect plan for tomorrow. Daily execution compounds quietly. The body adapts, the mind sharpens, skills improve, progress becomes visible, not because of intensity, but because of frequency. Showing up every day rewires identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts, not someone who waits. Acting now also removes excuses. When you commit to immediate effort, circumstances lose control over your behavior. Deliberate improvement becomes measurable. The gap between who you are and who you want to be starts closing through practical effort. Action builds courage through evidence. Each completed task becomes proof that you can handle discomfort. Courage is not a feeling, it is a habit formed by doing difficult things repeatedly. As action becomes routine, resistance weakens. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. Delaying action strengthens doubt. Deliberate improvement becomes measurable. The gap between who you are and who you want to be starts closing through practical effort. Action builds courage through evidence. Each completed task becomes proof that you can handle discomfort. Courage is not a feeling, it is a habit formed by doing difficult things repeatedly. As action becomes routine, resistance weakens. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. Delaying action strengthens doubt. Acting immediately weakens it. The longer you wait, the louder the inner resistance becomes. Starting silences that noise. Even minimal effort disrupts hesitation. One step forward creates space for the next. Movement reveals direction. Stillness feeds uncertainty. Choosing action now is choosing responsibility. You stop outsourcing your future to motivation, luck, or approval. You take ownership through effort. Each action is a declaration that progress matters more than comfort, that discipline matters more than mood. that growth is earned through doing rather than thinking, through engagement rather than observation, through repeated execution even when the mind resists and the body prefers ease. Becoming unstoppable is not about intensity, aggression, or proving strength to the world. It is about alignment between who you are and what you do every day. When identity and action match, resistance weakens. You stop forcing discipline because discipline becomes normal. The mind no longer negotiates with excuses because the standard is already set. This is where effort becomes automatic and progress becomes steady. Identity is shaped by repeated behavior. Every action casts a vote for the person you are becoming. When you consistently choose effort over comfort, clarity over chaos, and discipline over distraction, the image you have of yourself begins to change. You stop seeing discipline as something you try to have and start seeing it as something you are. This shift is subtle but powerful. Once identity changes, behavior follows without struggle. An unstoppable mindset is calm, not rushed. Urgency often comes from insecurity, from the fear of being left behind. Stability comes from trust in process. When you trust your routine, your effort, and your direction, there is no need to hurry or panic. You move with patience because you know progress is inevitable when standards are maintained. This calmness is often mistaken for passivity, but it is controlled. Is subtle but powerful. Once identity changes, behavior follows without struggle. An unstoppable mindset is calm, not rushed. Urgency often comes from insecurity, from the fear of being left behind. Stability comes from trust in process. When you trust your routine, your effort, and your direction, there is no need to hurry or panic. You move with patience because you know progress is inevitable when standards are maintained. This calmness is often mistaken for passivity, but it is controlled strength. Consistency reinforces identity more than achievement. Achievements come and go, but consistency builds character. When you show up regardless of outcome, you reinforce the belief that effort is non-negotiable. Failure no longer threatens your confidence because your confidence is rooted in behavior, not results. You measure success by adherence to standards rather than temporary outcomes. As identity solidifies, external validation loses importance, praise becomes optional. Criticism becomes irrelevant. You are no longer guided by reactions but by principles. This internal guidance system keeps you steady during uncertainty. When conditions change, you adjust without losing direction. When challenges appear, you respond without emotional volatility. Control replaces chaos. An unstoppable identity also accepts discomfort as part of growth. Difficulty is no longer a signal to stop, but a signal to refine. You understand that resistance is evidence of progress. This perspective transforms obstacles into tools. Each challenge becomes training for resilience. Each setback becomes feedback instead of failure. Over time, this way of living compounds. Habits reinforce mindset. Mindset reinforces action. Action reinforces identity. The cycle strengthens itself. Discipline becomes lighter because it is supported by belief. Effort becomes cleaner because it is guided by clarity. The gap between intention and execution narrows until it almost disappears. When identity is built on action, silence, focus, and consistency, momentum becomes self-sustaining. You no longer need motivation to begin, because beginning is part of who you are. Progress continues even on difficult days. Direction remains clear even in uncertainty. Strength becomes quiet, stable, and reliable, rooted in daily choices that reinforce purpose, sharpen discipline, and solidify a way of being that does not depend on circumstances, opinions, or temporary emotion.